Just to let you know, this episode deals with issues of grief. Welcome to Filmability. My name is Joel Fisher and I'm the author of Filmability, a history of disability in cinema that you can find on Amazon in Kindle paperback. Welcome if this is your first time listening, welcome back if you've listened before, and welcome to anybody listening via YouTube. All episodes are available now, with new ones available every Monday. This week I'll be talking about Rain Man, the 1986 Oscar-winning movie starring Dustin Hoffman and Tom Cruise. Rain Man is directed by Barry Levinson, a director best known for The Natural with Robert Redford and Good Morning Vietnam with Robin Williams prior to Rain Man. He went on to direct films such as Bugsy with Robin Beatty and Annette Bening, Sleepers with Robert De Niro, Brad Pitt and Kevin Bacon, and Wag the Dog with Robert De Niro, Dustin Hoffman and Woody Harrelson. Rain Man is also written from an original screenplay by Ron Bass and Barry Morrow. Ron Bass also wrote the screenplay for Mozart and the Whale, about an autistic couple, which I will cover at another time. As usual, if you want to watch Rain Man, then I suggest you do so now before finishing the podcast. In the UK, you can find it on Netflix and Amazon Prime for free, as well as being able to buy and rent digitally and in physical form. So without further ado, let's get on with the film. Okay, so the film starts out with a car seemingly hovering over a cityscape and being lowered down by a crane to the ground where Charlie's waiting with other men. Charlie is played by Tom Cruise. It appears to be some kind of open-air car showroom, and one of the cars speeds off and goes to what appears to be an old warehouse, where Charlie, Susanna and other men are talking to people on the phone. Susanna is played by Valerina Golino. The cars are in the warehouse too, and they're selling the cars, and the whole thing just seems a little bit shady. The car speeds off with Charlie and Susanna, and she says that she's going away for a few days, and is concerned that Charlie doesn't seem all that bothered. He then gets a call on his car phone, saying that his father has died, and that his lawyer has been trying to reach him. He tells Susanna that they fell out a long time ago and that there's no point going back, but Susanna disagrees, and with that he turns around the car. At the funeral, Charlie is watching from a distance and Susanna's in the car. Charlie comes back and says he has to go over the details of the will tonight. They drive to a house where Charlie opens a garage and he finds a classic 1949 Buick convertible. They go inside and Susanna finds a picture of him and his father when he was a child. He says he took the car that they found in the garage when he was a kid because he just said he deserved it. He says he got caught by the police though, and as a punishment his dad left him there for 2 days and they haven't really talked since. He then starts talking about somebody called Rain Man, who was an imaginary friend when he was a child. Susanna asks him whatever happened to Rain Man, and Charlie says that, like with other things, he just grew up and Rain Man disappeared. At the lawyer's office, the lawyer reads out the will and says that Charlie's father's car and rose bushes will go to him, although his father's money will go to an unidentified beneficiary. Charlie argues with the lawyer, but he won't give him the name. And then outside, Suzanne asks what happened, and Charlie just says he got what he was expecting. Charlie goes to an office somewhere and charms a woman behind the desk, and he finds out where he can go to find out where his father left the money. They're driving outside a large building, and a man with Down syndrome is walking past, and Charlie asks for a name. Inside they're walking on a corridor, and they see some people inside watching a game show on TV. In another room, they're showing people playing on a piano, and some other people are playing games. And basically, this is coming across like it's a care home, and it's for people who have mental disabilities. In an office, Charlie is arguing with a man, and the man says that he took on the burden for his father. Basically, he's not going to tell Charlie anything more other than it's his responsibility to look after what happens to his father's money. Oh, what is to be a burden? Certain words set me off, such as brave or inspirational when describing a disabled person, and the burden of responsibility is one of those phrases that really boils my blood. Disabled people are not and should never be considered as a burden. It stems from a number of factors that make certain non-disabled people consider disabled people to be a burden, and it seems to be ingrained in society. Firstly, disabled people are seen as having to do things that non-disabled people don't have to think about. So there's this implication that their lives could be so much harder. Secondly, the supposed burden that we face leads to pity, because without knowing the facts about how a disabled person lives their lives, then it must be so much harder for them than a non-disabled person. Thirdly, this means that for some non-disabled people, a disabled person's life is not worth as much, because of the extra effort that they have to make in order to make their lives worth living. Lastly, there's the assumption that the carer for the disabled person must have a much worse life because they have to think of the disabled person before themselves. The idea that they must have to constantly think about the disabled person and miss out on things because they have to include the disabled person only infantilizes those disabled people. It also adds to the idea that carer is just somebody whose responsibility is to care for the disabled person's needs and forget their own. However, a carer's responsibility may start out as a job, or even something that happens to somebody when a family member becomes disabled, but the care is still there. A disabled person is not an object or a pet that somebody has to look after because it will weigh on their conscience if they don't. A disabled person is still a person who has thoughts, feelings and opinions. So when somebody takes on the responsibility of being a carer, it's not a burden, it's a chance to grow closer to another human being and learn about their life and how they navigate the world. If we all did that more, then the world would be a little better. Disabled people wouldn't even be seen as a burden if some non-disabled people didn't think that making the effort to go out of their way to make a disabled person's life better was so hard. Yes, we need ramps, braille and sign language interpreters, but if you thought of disabled people as the same as everybody else who would need something different from what you'd need, we would all be better off for it. In the car, Raymond, played by Dustin Hoffman, is talking to Susanna, and Charlie comes out and tells him to get out of the car, asking why Susanna let him sit in the car in the first place. Raymond gets out, but he says that he's an excellent driver, and Charlie then realises that Raymond knows the car and the details about his life, including his mother, and that's the point where Charlie is told that Raymond is his brother. Inside, Charlie is told that Raymond is an autistic savant and that he has trouble learning. Other than that, he can do everything else that anybody else can do. Charlie gets angry that he wasn't even told that he had a brother, and the man tells Charlie that Raymond doesn't understand the concept of money, although he does live a normal life. Basically, this money is for him to take care of him throughout his life. In Raymond's room, Raymond is reciting the Abbott Costello routine, Who's on First, because Charlie is touching his things and the carer explains that it helps him to calm down when he gets anxious. Charlie takes the book off the shelf and makes fun of Raymond for not knowing whether he read it or not, despite knowing everything about it in the book. Raymond is going through some baseball cards, and Charlie asks if he wants to go outside, and his carer talks to him to encourage him, and they go out. Outside, Raymond has a jacket and backpack on. Susanna wants to go to the car, but instead Charlie and Raymond end up sitting by a pond and watching the ducks. Charlie talks about baseball and other things, and he's trying to get to know Raymond, but he's getting nowhere, and they leave. In the car, they're going over a bridge, and with Raymond in the back, he starts humming, imitating the sounds of the car. They go to a hotel room, and Charlie shows Raymond the room that he'll be staying in. Raymond says that he doesn't like it though, and wants to change the furniture around. And this is the thing when it comes to some autistic people. They can be really affected if their routine is changed because their brains often process information in a highly detailed and intense way. meaning that when the environment becomes unpredictable, there are too many variables to keep in mind at any one time. Having a normal routine limits the element of surprise, reduces the fatigue that some autistic people feel around making decisions, and helps to make their day more manageable. There's also a heightened anxiety when things become uncertain. This can add mental stress, and a routine helps to create a stabilising framework that the autistic person can relate to. Many autistic people experience differences in executive function, as in planning, switching tasks, and organising information, so a routine can remove the need to constantly plan. It can help the transitions from one to another feel easier, and reduce the mental load. If things were to be random in an autistic person's life, then it would be mentally exhausting to deal with every little change, as it would be a problem for them to solve. Having a routine may also help with sensory sensitivity. The predictability of a routine helps to control things such as noise and light levels, other social demands from other people, because other people can be tiring, and that goes for any large crowded spaces or places where any of the light and or noise levels can change without warning. Finally, a routine helps to regulate a person's emotions and make them feel safe by creating clear boundaries, a feeling of control, and a stability in a world that can often feel intense. When an autistic person melts down, it's not just that the disruption is inconvenient, it can feel destabilising. However, it's also worth noting that some autistic people crave novelty within their structured boundaries. They like change, but only when they initiate it, and they can develop flexible routines over time. I've said it before, and I'll say it again, not all autistic people are the same. Charlie and Susanna leave the room while Raymond is sitting on his bed and reading a book. He starts to move a piece of furniture around, but it falls over, and he starts to panic. Susanna goes back into the room and helps him out. She turns on TV to watch Wheel of Fortune, to which Raymond is reciting the entire opening monologue that introduces the show. Then they leave Raymond alone to read in his bed. He gets out of bed and he can hear noises from the other room. He starts to imitate the noises that he can hear. And as he gets closer, it's clear that Charlie and Susanna are having sex. And as Raymond goes into the bedroom, he sits on the end of the bed and watches TV, continuing to imitate the noises that Susanna's making. They realise that Raymond is there and Charlie shouts at him, but Susanna is kinder, although Raymond does leave the room. Charlie goes into Raymond's room and shouts at him, telling him that he shouldn't have come in. He goes into the bathroom where Susanna's in the bath and they argue. She asks why he brought Raymond along if he's going to treat him so badly, and he says that he's only there because he wants to get the money that he thinks he's owed. She gets angry and gets out of the bath, getting dressed and saying that she's leaving because he's using Raymond. And Charlie doesn't think that he is using Raymond, and asks Raymond if he feels like he's being used, and he says yes. And they continue to argue, with Susanna storming out of the room, leaving Raymond on his bed, rocking back and forth and talking to himself. At a diner, Raymond reads the name tag of the waitress and recites her phone number to her surprise. But Charlie just says that he likes to remember things. Charlie then asks Raymond how he knew the waitress's phone number, and Raymond says that he's memorised the G section in the phone book. Charlie makes a phone call and argues about the money that he thinks he's owed, and while Raymond is wandering around in the background, he drops a packet of toothpicks on the floor, and as somebody's going to go and pick them up, he can tell how many are on the floor just by looking at them. Not all of them have been dropped, but he's able to quickly count how many there are, and he also knows how many are left in the box. They get to the car and they drive off. Raymond is repeatedly reciting the tagline for the radio station they're listening to. At an airport, Raymond is watching on a remote TV while Charlie is making a call. He asks Raymond what he's watching and he says he doesn't know. He then takes Raymond away when Raymond sees an airplane and he starts to get nervous because he doesn't like flying. He starts reciting facts about airlines that have crashed and says that Qantas is the only airline that hasn't ever crashed. Charlie ignores him and reassures him that it's going to be okay, but Raymond starts to have a meltdown. So Charlie quickly tells him that they're not going to be flying, and they leave the airport and head back on the road. There's an accident ahead of them, and Raymond gets out of the car, wandering around again. Charlie gets out and then tries to get Raymond back in the car, but he won't come, so Charlie gets back in the car and moves the car along as Raymond is walking in front, refusing to get back in because he thinks the road is dangerous. Although eventually he gets back in the car, but he's reciting Who's on First again to keep him from feeling anxious. Back at the motel, Charlie's on the phone again and talking about his money problems and trying to get a loan. Charlie encourages Raymond to take a shower. Raymond is eating a meal and Charlie cuts up his fish sticks for him. Back on the phone, Charlie is talking to the lawyer and asking him about when he can get the money. He's heard about Susan and he asks his lawyer to get her to call him. Back in the car, they're talking about their father, and Raymond says he's let him drive the car. Charlie says that he'll let him drive sometimes, and without warning, Raymond leans over and grabs the wheel of the car, causing Charlie to shout at him. But I can see a little bit of a smile in Dustin Hoffman's face, so I don't know if he broke character a little bit in that moment. Raymond then says he's not wearing any underwear. Chase says let him borrow his, but Raymond says he doesn't like it. And this is the point where Charlie loses his patience. He gets out of the car and starts shouting at Raymond, and he just doesn't like that Raymond's being so fussy. He doesn't understand anything about autism at all. However, after a while, Charlie calms down and he gets back in the car. They stop in a town and Charlie gets out of the car and he uses a phone box. But then he looks back at the car and realises that Raymond has gone. He's vanished. Cut to Raymond drinking from a juice box or walking across a crossing. He sees the sign change to "Don't Walk" and he stops in the middle of the crossing, which is causing some kind of disruption in the traffic, and that's how Charlie finds him and takes him back to safety. Inside they're at an office. The nurse comes out and mistakenly reads that Raymond is artistic and not autistic. I mean, I know it's a small town, but I would have liked to have thought that a nurse would have understood what autistic was. But anyway. In the office, Charlie is talking to the doctor about the frustrations with Raymond, and the doctor asks about his special abilities. The doctor then asks Raymond some complicated maths questions, and he gets them right. Charlie's amazed, saying that Raymond should work for NASA. The doctor asks him if he knows what autistic means, and if it applies to him, but Raymond says that he doesn't think he's autistic. Outside, Raymond and Charlie are in a phone box. Charlie's trying to make a call, and Raymond is a little worried because it's very small, but Raymond farts. And there's a little back and forth, and I happen to know that that bit was improvised by them. It's a funny moment, really. Charlie gets through on the phone, but Raymond starts to panic a little bit, so they have to get out the phone box because it's quite cramped in there, and he might not like the sensations in there. They drive off to a house, and Charlie tells Raymond to shut up and stand there while he talks to the woman inside. And he says that she's been selected for a competition. But Raymond starts making noises to himself, and he ruins the gambit. He's trying to get in to help Raymond, but Raymond is showing himself up though because he's anxious and he just can't help it. She opens the door and Charlie levels with her by saying that Raymond needs to watch court TV because of his routine, and if he doesn't, then he's going to have to throw a fit. She says they usually watch cartoons, if that's okay. But he cut to inside and Raymond is watching court TV. He's quite happy, he's content with what he's got. They drive to another motel, get out of the car, and Raymond is reciting Who's on First again. And this is the point where Charlie tries to explain to Raymond that the joke is a sort of play on words, but Raymond thinks it's a riddle, and Raymond just keeps reciting it. Inside, Raymond is brushing his teeth, and Raymond starts talking about Rain Man. It's something that they both remember when they were children, and Charlie realises that when he was a child, he was trying to say Raymond, but he couldn't say it, so it came out like Rain Man. Raymond recites a date, and they start talking about a song that they remember when they were children, and they start singing it. It's a nice little bonding moment between the two of them. They go to the bathroom though, and Raymond sees the steam from the bath, and he starts to freak out. He starts talking about a burnt baby and worrying that Charlie was hurt. So Charlie puts two and two together and realises that because when they were kids, Raymond scolded Charlie with hot water, and that's why he was taken away, and he's been blaming himself for it ever since. But Charlie reassures him that he's fine and he's not hurt at all. Raymond pats Charlie on the head and leaves the bathroom, and then Charlie gets Raymond to bed and tucks him in. Charlie goes back into his own room and sits on the bed and thinks about what just happened. He then makes a call to Susanna and says that he'll call her when he gets back. On the road, Raymond has a disposable camera. He's taking photos of all the cars. And then when they get to a laundromat, Raymond is watching one of the dryers. It's going round and round and round, so he's really interested by it. It's something calming and relaxing, I'd imagine. Charlie then says, though, that he bought a portable TV for Raymond. He doesn't watch it, despite it costing a lot of money, and that he'd rather watch the dryer. He then gives Raymond his TV, remarking that he should watch it as the batteries drain easily. Charlie is making another call, and it's the person he was working with before, and he says that the cars that they're trying to sell are gone, and that he needs money to pay them off. Charlie gets angry and gets out of the phone box, and he swears loudly. Back in the car, Charlie and Raymond are sitting quietly, and you can see Charlie seething with rage. They go back to another place, and Charlie has some sunscreen. He puts it on Raymond's face, and saying he wouldn't have to do it if Raymond allowed him to put the roof up. And then it's turning to night as they enter Las Vegas, and they go to a diner, and Raymond is playing with a device that picks what record to play, and Charlie tells him to stop. Raymond says he remembers a song that's on the list, and Charlie starts to ask him about things that he does remember, like, for example, the amount of toothpicks that he dropped and other maths kind of related things. And that gives Charlie an idea, and he gets out a pack of cards, and he starts getting Raymond to remember the order of the cards. They drive off as Charlie explains how casinos work, and that they shouldn't be seen counting cards. It's the one thing they shouldn't be doing, so he wants to make sure that Raymond understands that what they're going to be doing is not legal. They get to a casino, and they get on a travelator, but Raymond stops because he doesn't understand the sensation, and he ends up moving backwards. They get dressed up, and there's that scene. If you've seen anything from Rayman, you've probably seen the bit where Dustin Hoffman and Tom Cruise are coming down an escalator, and they're both wearing matching suits. It's that kind of thing. It's a sort of moment where it seems that Charlie has embraced his brother. Whether he's using him or not is another question. They get to a blackjack table, and there's a montage of them playing games and winning a lot of money. A crowd gathers, they keep winning, and there's a man that makes a phone call because he suspects that they might be cheating. In a security office, they're being watched on a camera, and they're trying to figure out whether they're cheating or not. It's not very clear whether they can tell. Later on, Raymond then tries to bet on a spinning wheel, but he loses $3,000, and Charlie says it's not his game. So it shows that in Blackjack there's more of a strategical gameplay than there would be on a spinning wheel, because it's entirely a chance. Charlie then leaves Raymond at a table, and a woman approaches, asking if he's looking for a date. Charlie then comes back and warns her off, knowing that she's a hooker. But Charlie leaves them as Raymond says he wants to get to know her better. He says that they're counting cards, and he starts asking inappropriate questions to her, and she walks away. It's a funny scene. She's just trying to pick it up, get a job, get some money out of him. But she doesn't understand Raymond and what his mindset is, and it's just a funny little misunderstanding, really. They go back to the hotel room, and Charlie apologises for getting angry at him earlier. Raymond says he thinks he's going on a date with the woman that he met earlier, but then he says that he thinks he might be expected to dance, and he doesn't know how to dance. So Charlie says he's going to teach him, and they both get up. Charlie puts on some music, and he tells Raymond what to do, looking at his feet and watching what he does as he dances. They start dancing slowly. They're holding hands and close, and Raymond is still looking at Charlie's feet, so he encourages Raymond to look up at his face while they're dancing, and it's a nice moment. It's sort of, again, showing the bond between the brothers. But then, as they finish dancing, Charlie goes to give Raymond a hug, and because of Charlie's sanctuary issues, he has a meltdown. But Charlie still doesn't quite understand, and he leaves the room. Charlie goes to see Susanna. In his room, Raymond is watching somebody dancing on his TV. In the next scene, they go down to the casino, and Raymond is holding his portable TV, and Charlie says he should probably not take it into the casino with him. A man then appears and says to Charlie that the manager wants to speak to him. Then they cut to a scene where Charlie is in an office, and the manager is asking him what he's doing at the casino. Back in the casino, Serena and Raymond get into a lift, but she presses the emergency stop button because she wants to talk to Raymond. But Raymond can hear the music in the lift and he wants to dance, so as they did before, they start dancing slowly together, and she goes in to kiss Raymond, but he reacts clinically to it and tells her that it was wet. Back outside, Charlie lets Raymond drive, and he's doing rather well. It may surprise the audience to understand that Raymond is capable of doing things like that, so it's a good moment. They get to a motel, and as they get out, Susanna thanks Raymond for the date. To which Charlie acts a bit surprised, as she would do. Charlie and Raymond drive back to Charlie's place. Raymond starts reciting who's on first again because he's getting a bit more anxious, and they end up watching the routine on TV. Charlie asks Raymond where he first saw it, and Raymond said he saw it when he was with their dad. Then later, Charlie's on the phone again as he's watching Raymond dancing in the other room to some music, just sort of rocking back and forth, which is kind of my area of dancing. Outside, the man from the clinic gives Charlie some cash and tells him that he can just walk away from Raymond if he wants to. But Charlie says it's not about the money anymore, and he still doesn't understand why nobody has told him that he had a brother. Inside, Raymond is using a toaster oven, but he doesn't understand how to use it properly, and the fire alarm goes off. Charlie wakes up and rushes to the kitchen, and Raymond is having a meltdown because of smoke and the alarm's going off, and Charlie stops the alarm, and he calms Charlie down, but he's sitting down because he's exasperated by the whole situation. At dinner, Charlie asks Raymond what he wants on his pancakes, and he says he wants a maple syrup, and Charlie holds up a container of maple syrup, and it's again a nice little moment between them, because they've grown so much closer than from the beginning of the movie. Then they go back to the clinic, and they go to the office, and Charlie starts talking with the man in charge and a doctor, and that doctor is played by director Barry Levinson. The doctor asks Raymond what they did in the past week, and he says that he went gambling at a casino and he kissed a woman, reiterating that it was wet. Charlie talks about how they went to an airport and didn't fly because Raymond didn't want to fly. And the doctor starts questioning Raymond's competence, bringing up how Charlie only wanted to be with his brother so that he could get his money. But Charlie says that he's changed his mind and that they're wrong about what Raymond is capable of doing. The doctor then asks Raymond if he wants to stay with Charlie, and he says yes. And he asks Raymond if he wants to go back to the clinic, and Raymond also says yes. The doctor says Raymond should make a choice, and they go back and forth, but ultimately they get out of him that Raymond wants to go back to the clinic. They leave and Charlie talks to Raymond, getting him to understand what happened, and Raymond leans his head on Charlie's, but it's clear that Charlie won't ever really get the connection with Raymond that he wants. And then outside they're leaving a building, and it's a train station. Raymond follows Charlie, and he gives Raymond his backpack, and he lets Raymond get onto the train, and they say goodbye. Charlie says he'll visit him in 2 weeks' time though, so it seems that despite the fact that Raymond is going back, there will still be a continuing relationship between them. Charlie watches the train leaves and the credits play with pictures that Raymond took along their journey. And that's it for the film. Up next I'll be talking a bit more about my overall thoughts on the film and what I think the representation of disability would mean for the wider audience. Rain Man is a classic Oscar-winning film which still gets talked about today, for better or worse. On the one hand, this was the first time an autistic person was portrayed in such a way, highlighting what non-disabled people may come to expect when meeting one. On the other hand, this was the most high-profile example of an autistic person, and so many of the non-disabled audience would have seen this and thought that it applied to every autistic person in the world. Rain Man was then used as an example that so many other filmmakers could follow by portraying an autistic person. With so many not taking the time to research, this also became the cliche, and only enforced the stereotype in people's minds. In reality, autistic savants are rare and do not represent every autistic person. Some autistic people may have a certain interest because of their intense need to know everything about a particular subject, but that doesn't necessarily make them a savant. However, these are the kind of autistic people that the media starts to focus on. They put them on a pedestal and revere them because of their extraordinary abilities that they have in either accurately drawing a landscape from memory, marvel at them for being able to work out their complicated maths equations in their heads, and wonder at how a person can play a piano without having to read sheet music and compose the most beautiful compositions themselves. However, although Rain Man highlighted the kind of autistic person that the majority of people wouldn't meet, it did open a discussion and let other autistic people be heard. We know far more now about autism than we did 40 years ago, and there still seems to be things that we can learn. Autism may be one of those wonderful things that make us different. It may be the next evolution in the human race, or it may just be a thing that we need to learn more about. Okay, so those are my thoughts on the film, and up next we're going to talk about the trivia. Okay, so the trivia for Rain Man is quite extensive on IMDb, so I've done my very best to try and whittle it down to the things that I think you might find interesting. Firstly, I can say, and probably a lot like a lot of other films, Rain Man is included in the 1001 movies you must see before you die, edited by Steven Snyder. It was also included among the American Film Institute's 1988 list of the 400 movies nominated for the top 100 greatest American movies. The character of Charlie Babbitt was also originally a 56-year-old, which, considering the direction they went in, is interesting how it all started. Dustin Hoffman is also 25 years older than Tom Cruise, who played his younger brother, and logistically I'm not really sure that's possible, but maybe? I don't know. The script was originally written with real-life brothers in mind, and those were Randy and Dennis Quaid. and among the other actors considered for the part of Raymond were Bill Murray and Mickey Rourke. Murray passed without reading the script, believing that Dustin Hoffman would do a better job than he ever could. And Mickey Rourke didn't read the script either, opting to go to an unboxing match instead. Tom Hanks and Rob Williams were also considered for the role of Charlie. And Jack Nicholson, Robert De Niro and Mel Gibson also turned down the part of Raymond Babbitt. Tom Cruise also revealed to Sight and Sound magazine that his sister taught Dustin Hoffman at a restaurant and insisted that her brother go over to talk to him. Hoffman gave him tickets for a play that he was doing, and after the play was over they met and Hoffman told Cruise he would like to do a movie with him, and about a year or two later he sent Cruise the script for Rain Man. But after being moved to tears seeing a savant named Leslie Lemke and him playing full concertos on the piano by ear, he decided to play the part of Raymond Babbitt instead. Dustin Hoffman spent a lot of time with savant Kim Peek, the inspiration of the character of Raymond. Rain Man writer Barry Moreau first met Peek in 1986, and on winning an Oscar for the screenplay for the movie in 1989, gave his Oscar trophy to Kim Peek. Hoffman made Kim's father, his main caregiver, a promise that he would share Kim with the world. And for nearly 20 years, until his death, Kim Peek went all over the world, impressing people with his incredible memory and ability to recall minute details from centuries of history. Dustin Hoffman also spent a year working with autistic men and their families to understand their complex relationships. Also, when he was a jobbing actor, he also worked at a psychiatric care home and drew from his experience then for the film. Dustin Hoffman insisted that Raymond should be an autistic savant instead of being mentally disabled. His insistence was largely responsible for Martin Brest quitting the project. The script originally had Raymond as happy and friendly, but after initial reading, Dustin Hoffman successfully lobbied for Raymond to be a withdrawn autistic. Hans Zimmer, a newcomer to the film music scene at the time, was hired after Barry Levinson's wife heard Zimmer's music for A World Apart, a film that was released in 1988. She was so impressed that she presented it to her husband, liking what he'd heard, and decided to hire Zimmer. Barry Levinson also told Hans Zimmer that he should avoid strings in the score, as he felt it would make the film too sentimental. For in-flight viewing, several airlines deleted sequences in which Raymond Babbitt reels off statistics on airline accidents, except for Qantas. They even promoted one of the movie's writers to first class when he travelled on their airline. Director Barry Levinson admitted that Ray's comment about Qantas being the only airline company that never had a fatal crash was made up, and he didn't know if it was true. In reality, Qantas has had 8 crashes, all prior to the making of the film, but they were all propeller-driven planes and not jets. During filming, Dustin Hoffman was unsure of the film's potential and his own performance. 3 weeks into the project, Hoffman wanted out, telling Barry Levinson, "Get Richard Dreyfuss, get somebody, Barry, because this is the worst work of my life." Hoffman would then get his second Best Actor and Academy Award for his work, and Levinson was in 2025 a guest on The Rich Eisen Show, and confirmed that Hoffman was struggling with the role a few weeks into shooting, but that he never wanted to get out of the production. Barry Levinson shot most of the exchanges between Charlie and Raymond in profile as well, because Raymond refuses to make eye contact with anybody that he's talking to. During filming, Dustin Hoffman and Tom Cruise doubted the movie's potential and jokingly called it 2 schmucks in a car. Sir Michael Caine also revealed that Tom Cruise's performance in Rain Man was one of the most personal favourites he's ever seen in all of film. Caine found out somewhat later in his adult life that he had a brother that he never knew about who had lived in a care facility in Cane Hill Mental Hospital with a debilitating diagnosis of epilepsy. With great sincerity, he said Tom's performance was beautifully done, and he went on to say that Dustin had the showy part. During the shooting of the casino scenes, Dustin Hoffman would go off and play games like Blackjack. After production was halted to look for him, somebody was assigned to watch him during takes. Dustin Hoffman said the bathtub scene was the one that he dreaded the most, because he was unsure how to play it. Ultimately, he channeled his anger and frustration about doing the scene to convey the emotions of Raymond. Rain Man was also the highest grossing film to win the Academy Award for Best Picture, until it was surpassed by Dances with Wolves. It was also the first time that the highest grossing film of the year had won the Academy Award for Best Picture. That was since Rocky in 1979. Steven Spielberg considered directing. He began making notes in order to prepare for the project. And the reason he backed out is because his friend George Lucas needed him to start work on Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. When Dustin Hoffman's Best Actor Oscar was presented to him by Michael Douglas, the words that preceded the announcement of Hoffman's name were, "And the Oscar goes to," which for the first time had replaced the traditional line, "And the winner is." The Academy Award made the switch for discretionary purposes, as well as to avoid the implication that the nominees who did not win were losers, and the practice has been in effect ever since 1989. Despite writing the screenplay together, Barry Monroe and Ron Bass never met until the numerous award ceremonies that they attended when the film started garnering multiple awards. Raymond's also the only Best Picture nominee that year that was not nominated in either of the supporting acting categories. Raymond was also the only Best Picture Oscar nominee not nominated in either of the supporting acting categories that year, and it was the only Best Picture nominee of the year to be also nominated for original screenplay. The part of Susanna had originally been written as a Bond woman. By having a foreigner whose native tongue wasn't English playing the role, it allowed for Tom Cruise's character to do a lot of the exposition. J.T. Walsh was originally supposed to be playing the psychiatrist at the end of the movie. When he couldn't do it, Barry Levinson filled in, after Dustin Hoffman suggested it. Levinson said that if he didn't like the way he looks, he would have somebody else film it. He ad-libbed repeatedly to push Tom Cruise's buttons. One of the 1949 Buick Roadmasters that was featured in the film went up for auction in late 2012. It was purchased by an anonymous collector for $170,500. Ron Bass's first involvement with the film, when Martin Brest was attached, all took place over the phone when he was suffering from adult chickenpox. Brest and Dustin Hoffman's wives were pregnant at the time, and nobody actually wanted to sit down face to face for a meeting with him. This is the only film that holds the unique distinction to have won the Berlin Film Festival Golden Bear and the Best Picture Academy Award. The opening song of the film, Iko Iko by the Bell Stars, plays in the entirety during the opening credits. Rayman was released in 1988, but the song Iko Iko by the Bell Stars was released an entire 5 years before the film hit theatres. And by the time the song became popular due to the success of the film and its popular music video, the Bell Stars had already disbanded 2 years before the film was even released. And this is one of the first of a few directing and starring collaborations between Barry Levinson and Dustin Hoffman, the others being Wag the Dog in 1997 and Sphere in 1998. So that's it for this week. Next week I'll be talking about the best years of our lives, the post-World War II movie about 3 men coming back from war after serving their country. If you'd like to contact me, you can do so via Bluesky at bluesky.com/film-ability. You can also email me at film-ability@outlook.com. And if you'd like to make a contribution to the things that I do here, you can find me at Patreon at patreon.com/film-ability. You can also find my book at Amazon on Kindle and paperback called Film Ability, A History of Disability in Cinema. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.